Hello there. This is Christian, everybody. Welcome. This is a weekly video that I do. I'm actually just kind of doing these on demand. And when I pile up enough good questions to talk intelligently about something, I'll just shoot a video and post it for you. So I hope you guys are catching these. If you go to the YouTube channel, Barefoot Medicine Training, and search that with my name, Christian Nix, you'll see a backlog, a whole archive of videos of things that I've talked about. Hopefully that's helpful for everybody, trying to get real clarity, because the pivot protocol is different. This is a different way of getting to the bottom. A lot of stuff, obviously the acid blocker prescription way of treating acid reflux is a disaster. If you're watching this, you already know that. But it's a disaster because the mechanism itself, the way that your doctor's looking at it, but obviously the approach itself of blocking your stomach acid is a bad mechanism. That's a bad approach. It's bad thinking. It's a bad application of a pseudo solution to a problem that isn't really a problem. I mean, it's bad all the way down from stem to stern. And so the pivot protocol is so different that I do these videos to try to really illuminate some part of how this entire system works to get to the bottom of, to the real root cause. And it's a completely different medical understanding. It's nothing you've been exposed to. You would have to grow up in other cultures and study other medical systems and really learn about how pre-modern medicine works, because the pre-modern medical approaches had much better logic to apply to these kinds of chronic conditions. So I shoot these videos to try to bring some real clarity to that. So as I ramble on here, sometimes I teach a little bit in a circular manner, if you will, to try to circle back to some of the ideas that I have to introduce and then explain and then further explain. And so I'll tease this apart. But if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see a lot of videos. I try to keep these around 20 to 30 minutes. I'm not always successful, but if you go through about, I don't know, a dozen or so videos, you're going to have a really good idea of what makes the pivot protocol so different and so unique. And the heart of the system is really understanding that, number one, your self-healing ability, your body's inherent built-in capability of fixing its own problems, is by far the best thing you have. Now, it can be damaged to the point that you have no choice except to prop it up and use external kind of methods, if you will, and get help from outside. And when you're in a real pinch, in a serious emergency, that's where the modern medical system can just be invaluable, because it can truly save your life. Bleeding ulcers come to mind, this kind of emergency situation. But obviously, for God's sake, nobody wants to get in that situation, and you shouldn't be. With chronic conditions, way before you have an emergency, in almost all cases, there's all kinds of warning signs going off. There's lights flashing, and the lights on the dashboard are telling you this is not right, something seriously wrong inside you. And maybe it starts slowly, and it's not a siren that's screaming in your ear. But for heaven's sake, being able to read your symptoms is a major skill, and it's missing completely from the modern medical system. And we've all become, in a sense, sedated by the doctor's ability to sort of pull out a miracle kind of surgery, cure, healing right at the crucial moment, and to keep people alive. And our medical system is famous for that in the modern era. But it's the completely wrong approach, because when you're dealing with chronic conditions, you do have to have some ability, some power of your own to read what's happening, to understand what's causing it, and then to take simple actions before it becomes a head-on collision, so to speak, before it becomes a total catastrophe and a plane wreck. You need to be able to read what's happening inside your body and then take the appropriate steps to fix that underlying problem, so that the symptoms themselves are really only indicators of deeper problems. And so that's a good way of understanding that the pivot protocol teaches you how you're going to understand your symptomology in a manner that gives you real, hardcore, nitty-gritty, actionable kind of tools and behavioral changes and solutions that you can take on a day-to-day basis. What are my symptoms today? Okay, what counteracts that symptom? And as you cancel out these symptoms through the simple solutions that are provided in the protocol, you find out, right, over usually not that long, even just a couple of, sometimes, you feel better in a day. It's like, oh, something's changed already. Because that's the power of your self-healing system. We're leveraging, we're encouraging, and I don't want to use the word stimulate, because a stimulant is something that hyperactivates the body, and in digestive problems, and certainly in the modern world, stimulants are a big issue for people. They're creating all kinds of trouble, including a lot of extra heat, which causes your digestion to break down. So you're not stimulating your self-healing system, you're promoting it and encouraging it. You're creating the kind of conditions inside your body that allow you to heal on your own. And that's the big difference. The Pivot Protocol is not magic. I didn't pull this out of thin air. I'm not making it up. I went and studied a bunch of different medical systems to sort of piece together what were the important concepts and how modern people could figure this out on their own. And I knew when I was studying it and when I was going through my own digestive illness, like, my goodness, people need to know this. I was cataloging my experience. But because I was a professor in medicine for many years, from 2005 onward, and still do some kind of consulting, and I don't teach anymore. I don't go into schools and institutions, but I had experiences at the highest level, teaching doctors, and I really got around the globe with the knowledge and experience that I had. And it's not me. It's not even so much that it's something special about me. The system is that special. The mechanism that I'm teaching you, the underlying methodology by which you can understand your symptoms and then counteract them at the root cause, so that the symptoms themselves just become an afterthought. It's like the symptom's important because it's like you're hearing a message from your body, and then you go, okay, well, let's trace that. Does this cause that? Does that cause that? What's the cause of that symptom? Okay, let's fix that root cause, and oh my goodness, look at this. The symptom's completely cleared up. And allowing your body to do that over and over again, so that your body is the main tool of healing that we're using here, and that it knows what to do to fix you way better than propping your body up with pills or having to have some radical surgery on your digestive system. God help you if you go through that. But today I want to talk about, I got a question about the so-called FODMAP diet. And that's an interesting topic. Now, I go into this in the Pivot Protocol, but I'm going to gloss it here. But you got to go to the material itself, where I'll explain what is important to understand about the difference between carbs and carbs. Right? I'll explain what I mean in a second. But basically, the main point here is not all carbohydrates are the same. And this is a major stumbling block for a lot of people. I get these questions and they go, well, you said eat this first, then eat that, then have my carbs. And it's like, should I eat this carb or that carb? It's like you're using one label for things that are radically different. Now, if you don't know what the FODMAP so-called diet is, it's for a lot of people with very sensitive intestines, everything from IBS to, of course, acid reflux, any kind of digestive disorder, where, lo and behold, right, what modern science has discovered, good heavens, right, that people knew for thousands of years, that was lost in this weird categorization of, like, let's just call all of these different foods carbohydrates, and that makes them all the same, because this carb is the same as that carb. Rice and sweet potatoes are not the same as white bread and white potatoes and noodles and simple pasta. It's not the same. And if you categorize them all the same, you get totally confused. Like, did I have carbs? Can I mix this with this? What carbs go with this meal? And what's he talking about that I can have carbs, in this order? And I did that, and it made me sick. And basically, like the FODMAP, the big revelation, right, the big breakthrough, and this is always the thing, it's so hard not to be derisive about modern dietary theory. So much of it is fad dietary kind of marketing. But even the modern scientific types who focus on criteria that are utterly confusing for the user, right? If you have to design a diet and you go study modern, food pyramid kind of USDA recommended daily allowances and what if you just take a bunch of vitamins and minerals? Does that give you your nutrition? Oh, I'm not getting enough vitamin D or whatever. The specific ingredient that you feel like you're missing. It makes people neurotic, and you focus on these almost idiotic lists of, did I get enough of this? Am I eating enough from that category? Et cetera, et cetera. It's totally unhelpful. And so the categorization system itself is the problem. And you have to look beyond it because it's too vague. You can't say that all carbohydrates are the same, right? Carbs are not carbs. Various foods are very different in their action on your digestive system. And here's where the ancient medical systems had massive advantages because their methodology of categorizing different foods is totally different. It's very sophisticated. They have 14, 15, 16, 17 different criteria for what effect a food is going to have on your body. That is not the same at all as saying, well, all grains are carbohydrates. It's like, right, but they're not equal, right? They don't have the same effect. If you have this pattern of imbalance with this list of symptoms, this carbohydrate's going to help you, this one's going to crush you. And, you need to know that. You need to figure that out. You can't keep making the same mistake over and over again because, either a Christian said this or, somebody told me that I can have, my carbs and I need enough carbs, or the big thing, obviously, in the last 10 years, which, of course, will circle back around and everybody will wake up like from a nightmare and realize the no-carb diet is complete bullshit, right? It's really one of the stupidest things you can do to your body. I explain why you need carbohydrates in the Pivot Protocol. If you're trying to fix all of your health problems just by your diet, you're already at a disadvantage. You need carbs because carbs help with a certain aspect of your performance. Obviously, there's a reason athletes eat carbs, and I explain this and what's the relationship to your liver and why the stress hormones in your body require this. But you have to understand the difference between one type of carbohydrate and another. The FODMAP diet is essentially the modern medical attempt to recognize that there are short-chain polysaccharides and there are long-chain polysaccharides. There are simple sugars and there are complex sugars. And we know this. You've probably heard the term complex carbohydrate. There are complex sugar molecules that are produced from certain carbohydrates that tend to be a lot less irritating. Now, why is that? Well, because carbohydrates, especially simple ones, especially these short kind of polysaccharides, they break down so quickly, they're indistinguishable chemically, metabolically, according to how your body behaves when you introduce them into your intestines. They're indistinguishable from eating sugar. So, if you want to cause bacterial overgrowth, if you want to cause fungus to grow inside your body, anywhere actually, put sugar in a bucket of water. The ambient yeast from the air will cause fungus to grow. Okay? In no time at all, you'll have fungus on the surface of the water. So you don't need much to cause serious microbial action that can really damage your health. And if you're eating certain kind of carbohydrates, it's not the same as eating another kind of carbohydrate that does not promote that kind of simple sugar reaction inside your body. This is a major, major stumbling block for people. So don't write me questions, right? Or I'm ranting here, but all carbohydrates are not the same. People go, oh, you said to eat this and then have carbs. Can I eat, such and such carb? And it's like the confusion is in the definition of what a carbohydrate is. If you label all of the different foods that we label as carbohydrates as the same, you lose the discernment, the discrimination between what are essentially simple sugars versus complex sugars. And there's an element for each individual that you do need to test and see. This is the main rule. I don't know what will fix you. I can only give you a different way of thinking about how to understand what your body is telling you. And if you know that different way, which is essentially what I'm providing in the Pivot Protocol, then how you fix yourself becomes really obvious. It's like, well, I ate this and I had these symptoms. Oh, I just triggered this imbalance. And, Christian has taught me that imbalance means that this organ is reacting this way. Okay, well, let's prevent that from happening. And by preventing this over and over, you're not only stopping the symptomology because you've stopped it at the root, you're also allowing your body to fix things on its own. There's a concept in modern medicine called allostatic load. And no doubt the ancients had this, but they never thought of it this way. Allostatic load means all the different pressures that you're putting on your body. Oh, I slept terribly. Oh, my elimination sucks today. Oh, I'm actually injured, so I can't work out the way I used to. And all this pressure pushing down on the body is the allostatic load. When you start to take pieces off, like you're buried under a pile of bricks, right? And your self-healing system is like, I can't keep up with it. I'm breaking down over here. And you know what that feels like if you've been sick for any amount of time. And you take one brick off and another brick off and another brick off, and then you learn a little more about the pivot protocol, and you realize, like, wait a second, I know how to get that mucus out of my system. I know how to prevent this kind of reaction in my intestine. I know what causes bloating and gas and how to prevent it, and how to fix that problem at the deepest level without masking it with some kind of supplement or pill. Lo and behold, the allostatic load becomes much less, and what happens? Your self-healing system is now busy fixing things all around inside of you, and your symptoms get better at an exponential rate. You get better so radically faster using this kind of approach because you're enrolling your body's own resources to fix all the things that it hasn't been able to attend to, because there's so much going on that your self-healing system is simply overwhelmed by what's happening. When you start to take that pressure off of it, it heals on its own. Your body figures out how to fix things much better than your doctor could ever interfere and try to do, and end up causing more problems for you. So the FODMAP diet, there's nothing really that radical about it. I think it's a breakthrough for a lot of people for whom it is a breakthrough, but clearly that carbohydrates are not the same. I go into this in serious detail in the pivot protocol, and so you need to know that. You need to know what carbs cause what kind of reaction, and then you need to test it on yourself, understanding that this category of carbohydrates and these grains are very different than these here. And there's a reason that this kind of carbohydrate causes massive dampness, and you need to understand that before you get started, so that you're not just banging your head into a wall over and over again, not realizing what misery you're causing yourself. Okay, I said I would talk about fasting. Let me just check the email here. I think I remember the exact question. Yeah. People focus on fasting to lose weight, obviously. It's no secret, by the way. It's a very uncomfortable truth that if you want to lose weight, you actually got to cut back on your eating. But that's not the only thing you have to do. And there's another reason for fasting to occur. Here's a strange thing. When I fast, I gain weight. Now, there's a lot of talk about how's that possible, right? I mean, that should be the first question that comes to your mind. Well, it's really simple, actually, because what a lot of people don't understand is when your body is so burdened, when you're so sick, when the heat inside you and the metabolic heat that builds up, when your body is so overwhelmed that it's working itself to death, right, to try to keep you going, to try to keep itself propped up, that extra heat burns up your resources inside of you. It burns up your fat, first of all. So you see people with digestive illness get very thin, right? I got really, like, frighteningly, freakishly thin when I was sick. I'm about, 165, 167 now, and that's pretty good fighting weight for me. That's about what I was when I was an athlete. But I was 147. I was cadaverous, right? And I look at videos and pictures back when I was sick, and I was still trying to recover. And I mean, goodness, I look and feel better now than I did 15 years ago. And it's not surprising, because my body was so overwhelmed that I'm burning up resources. Well, you can do that for a while, especially if you're young, but you can't do it very well when you're old, and you can't do it for very long. And the longer it goes on, the more damage you do. And you're just burning up your future. You're burning years off the end of your life. So you have to turn that around quickly. Fasting is a wonderful way to do that. Now, there's a right way and a wrong way to fast. And when I say I put on weight, it's because what happens when you fast is you shut off the metabolic heat. It's like think about it, right? If you're shoveling coal into a furnace, well, stop shoveling coal in. What happens to the fire? Eventually, it starts to die down. Now, you have to do this in a certain way, and I talk about it a little bit inside the pivot protocol. But mostly what you need to study is how the liver is affected by this. If you understand the whole role of the liver in creating heat, and then what happens when it gets too hot, and why is your liver always overheating? Why is that? I've been writing about it this week in the daily email. So read this week's emails, because I'm kind of covering this. It's a kind of paradoxical thing. Your liver always wants to overheat. You can't stop it. It's part of being alive. You don't want to stop it because there's reasons why it needs to be plenty hot. But you can mitigate it. You can control what's happening and make sure that it doesn't blow you up and cause all kinds of symptoms because your liver completely overheats. Okay, so that's a little bit about fasting, but another question came in, I don't know if I can find it here, asking about trigger foods. Well, you can figure out your trigger foods. That's not tough to do. The issue is, do you have to figure out all of them, or are you astute enough to look at the categories of food as I'm giving them to you, as I'm teaching this to you. And I mean, admittedly, the pivot protocol, there's elements of it that are vague on purpose. You need to figure out certain things for yourself. It's not the situation that Christian or any other source can teach you what foods to eat. You have to figure that out based on how your body responds and the feedback that you get in the form of symptoms. This has to be clear at some point, because obviously if there was a list of foods that eliminated acid reflux, got rid of all of your illness, got rid of arthritis, made your brain sharp, and you lived until 500 years old, everybody would already know that diet. It would already be widely spread kind of knowledge. That can't possibly be the case. There is no diet and no list of foods that you should eat. You have to figure out what foods you should eat. Nobody else can make that list for you. And the way that you do it is, oh, I ate this, these symptoms appeared. Or I ate this and I felt awesome for like 6 hours. I didn't even think about food. Whoa, that's a clue, right? But if you eat something and you trigger a kind of, it won't be one symptom, it will be multiple symptoms. Well, that's a clue too. And you need to recognize, like, wait, that's my body telling me that not only is that food a problem for me, but here's the specific organ that is absolutely reacting badly and out of balance. And that's the part where the pivot protocol makes this so clear to you, because you're provided with a logic and a mechanism underneath what's happening to you. You can make sense of your symptomology in a way that makes action pretty easy. And you look and I'm telling you, like, well, here's what happens when your spleen is out of balance. Here's what happens when your liver overheats. Here's what happens to your organ. Here's what happens to your intestines. Do you have these symptoms? If you do, here's how you get rid of them. And then you look at the solution, you go, oh, that's right, because when I have that particular beverage, oh my goodness, that would help my intestines. That makes total sense to me. And then you taste it or you try it, and a few minutes later you're like, oh my God, I can feel what's happening inside of me. Not everybody has this kind of, the word is interoception, where you can really feel deeply inside your organs. But if you do have it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like it's probably a burden more than anything else, because it can make you so inwardly self-conscious and focused that you become neurotic about every sensation in your body. And by itself, that's not good. You have to overcome that. But partly the pivot protocol helps you overcome that, because if you are sensitive to that level inside your body and deep into your organs themselves, and you can feel every damn thing that's going on inside your body, well, now you have a way to understand it. Now it's a powerful thing. It's not a neurotic fixation. It's actually something that makes you really powerful, because by God, you can head off. I mean, I remember when I was really sick with autoimmune kind of condition, which no doctor talked to me about, which no doctor is going to help you with, by the way, aside from steroids, which will destroy your kidneys. But when I had all these autoimmune things, I literally would pick up a piece of food, and before I put it in my mouth, I knew that I was going to have a reaction. So I figured out, like, gee, maybe I shouldn't eat this. My body told me by sense of smell that I was about to have a bad reaction to something. So it's not like we don't have that kind of instinct and deep physiological history in our evolution that allows you to understand what's happening. The pivot protocol is a system, a logical system that teaches you how to make sense and interpret those kinds of symptoms and what's happening inside your body, so that you don't have to go around in circles and reinvent the wheel. You can just look at, like, oh, here's what the wisdom of multiple centuries of medical knowledge, that's what I'm bringing to you, is multiple centuries of very smart people figured out what causes that symptom, and all you need to decide is, A or B. Is it being triggered by this food? Is it caused by this mechanism? Is it caused by that one? Okay, well, we know what's caused. We know what causes the lump in the throat sensation, where you feel like you can't swallow properly, or a sore throat, or swollen lymph nodes, or fatigue, right? Or get dizzy when you stand up, or loose stools, alternating diarrhea and constipation. All of these symptoms are categorized in a way that helps you understand the exact mechanism that's giving rise to them. And once you know that, then the solutions are not only simple, they're actually really simple solutions. People go, how do you fix acid reflux? It's like, it's so simple, but I can't tell you the solution because it's too far. We're focusing too far down the line. If I just say, take this, do this, and take this supplement and eat these herbs, it's like, inevitably that's going to cause problems because it's not specific to you. So the part that we have to do before we get to the end, which is the solution where you open the last envelope and go, okay, now I know how to fix my refluxes, you gotta study why you're having your exact symptoms and what specifically is causing them. And I mean in the day and hour that it's happening. You can't just arbitrarily decide like, well, he said this fixes my reflux, so I'll take all of these supplements. It's like, no, that's going to make you worse. I guarantee it. You have to parse out the exact problems that you're having and figure out exactly the causes that you need to treat, and then you take the solutions at the end and you go, okay, I fix this. Oh, I'm having a little bit of this today. Oh, I'm having a little bit of these symptoms. I'm going to fix my organs one at a time until the self-healing system takes over, and lo and behold, you wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I really am completely healed. And that's what I want for you guys. So that's why I go to this trouble and why I record this, and hopefully you get that I actually do care about sharing this really, really revolutionary kind of approach that I think so many people are benefiting from. So keep your questions coming. That's all I have time to share. I got to get off to my other job, and we'll have I'll keep this going. All right, as long as I have questions to answer, I'll keep talking to you in these videos. So thanks very much. And if you haven't started on the Pivot Protocol, I just can't imagine if you're looking at this and you've stayed for this entire video, really what are you waiting for? If you want help to fix your digestive system, the best thing you can do is learn how to fix it yourself. This entire methodology is just based on really old principles that make tons of sense. Once you've been through the material, you go, oh my goodness, I understand exactly what he's talking. This guy's talking about me. This guy's talking about my experience. I've been there. I've treated enough patients to understand what you're dealing with. Your job is to get busy, give it a real try, go through phase 1, which is a lot of prohibitions. We've got to stop the damage from happening at first. That's the important first step. You can't be undermining your progress. If you're going to heal, you got to stop causing problems for yourself. For a lot of people, that's a real eye-opener. It's like, oh, you mean I can't drink this? Like, wow, that's a real, I didn't know that. Or I was taking this supplement. I need to stop that, right? It's causing some part of my problem. And then you stop it and you find out like, wow, I actually feel better already. So it's designed to be very simple and for you to get through it in a matter of hours, really. Probably in a day. You could study the whole phase 1 and start putting solutions in place. But mostly it's teaching you what not to do. But we're setting up for, and here's the second part, is the master class. The master class is going to teach you incredible, incredible solutions. But again, based on your specific organ imbalance, your specific problem. This is the whole thing that makes the Pivot Protocol so radically different than anything else. It's a completely different mechanism. It's a totally different approach for getting to the bottom of digestive illness. And when your symptoms begin to change, you change your behavior to match your new symptoms. Because normally you don't just get out of your symptoms and everything's fine. They're going to shift, and now suddenly you have this, and now it's over here, and now the problem's in your upper right abdomen, right, the epigastrum. Whoops, now I have problems in the lower belly, and urination is affected, etc., right? All kinds of different things will happen as you continue to recover. This is normal. I make it pretty clear why that's the case. You're chasing an illness out of your body. Your body's developed a weakness, and you have to chase it out of there and build it back up. But most people also have to eliminate certain things from the body in order to achieve that. So all of this becomes clear. I hope you take a good shot on the Pivot Protocol. We really are here to help, and if I can't help you, I don't want your money, which is why I provide a good money-back guarantee. But all you have to do is take the first step. So I hope you'll do that, and keep sending me your questions. If you get stuck with anything, I try to answer emails personally. If I don't have time, it just means your email is too bloody long. So be polite about it, because I'm doing that part basically gratis. And if you do want a private consultation, I also offer that. Just contact me via email at info@pivotprotocol.com. Okay? Thanks very much. I hope you get started. Talk to you soon.